Welcome to Roads Less Traveled, the podcast where real estate, rail trails, and bike tourism meet. I'm Craig Della Penna. I'm a realtor with a passion for turning former railroad corridors to thriving trails and communities. If you're curious about buying homes near these trails, starting a bed and breakfast, or simply want to learn about the incredible opportunities along these greenways, you're in the right place. Every 2 weeks, I'll share stories, expert advice, and conversations with guests who know the ins and outs of rail-to-trail living and tourism. Ready to explore a unique slice of real estate and adventure? Let's hit the trail. David Hallerman is a retired communications professional now based in Western Massachusetts. He previously served as Chief Marketing Officer at In Place ReDesign Architecture, a firm specializing in aging in place design and planning. Before that, he worked as a principal analyst at eMarketer, focusing on U.S. advertising and digital media trends. Active in his community, David participates in events such as the Will Bike for Food charity ride for the Food Bank of Western Mass, does photography for Grow Food Northampton, and volunteers with Northampton Neighbors. He's an avid cyclist, photographer, astrologer, and resides in Florence, Massachusetts. Welcome, David.
Yes, thank you, Craig. Good to be here.
Yes, this is exciting. We met David when he was a bed and breakfast guest. Him and his wife, Kathy, stayed at our bed and breakfast. And they decided they loved Northampton and Florence so much they wanted to move here. And so they did.
With your help.
Yes.
With your great help.
Thank you. It was such a odd occurrence that you loved Florence so much. And then the day before you were scheduled to go back.
The morning we were about to leave in 2 hours, and the place came on the market. And I said to Craig, "Hey, Craig, can we see it before we leave?" Because you had become a broker as well as our host at the inn. And yeah, sure. So we were the first people to see the place.
I know. We were in a peak of the seller's market back then, where it was very difficult to buy a house. There was such a shortage of inventory that lots of times you had a lot of competition on it. Would sometimes see 25 offers, sometimes 90 parties at open houses, and you were early in and they liked our offer.
It happened. It was 5 weeks from the time we saw the place to closing.
Yes.
It helped. We weren't dealing with any banks, but still, it faster than we expected.
Yeah.
And other than sometimes the difficulty getting healthcare in this area, everything about it has been improvement for us.
That's great. I don't know that much about healthcare problems around here. So let's get into our talking points here. Got some questions to ask you. Trails, community, and change, the debate around motorized vehicles on bike trails, that's e-bikes on bike trails, the role of eminent domain in revitalizing Northampton, and rail trails as a community connector in modern times.
Let's start with that.
Yeah. What's this about motorized vehicle? Are you talking about e-bikes?
E-bikes is a very broad category. There are assisted pedaling bikes where you still pedal, and when you need a little extra bit of help, you can add that. And then there's a range, but what we're seeing more and more on the trails here are really small electric motorcycles, throttle-based, no pedaling. They're people, they go faster than even a fast regular cyclist, which I used to be in my younger days. And it really seems antithetical to what the trail should be, which is walkers, people on regular bicycles, and maybe the e-bikes. Let me give you a contrary example. Last week, I went with a group with Northampton Neighbors to the rail trail in the Berkshires, Ashta-Wiltecook Trail.
The other unpronounceable Indian name.
It's a good one. It's a beautiful trail, and several places there were signs that only level one e-bikes, the sort where it's still, you still have to pedal and it adds some. And it doesn't allow that sort of thing. There were other good things we saw about that trail, but just focusing on the e-bikes, there's that. And yet there's no prohibition or even disincentive to have these small electric motorcycles zoom along on the trail. In fact, it was interesting. This past Sunday, when I did the Will Bike for Food ride for the food bank, when people gathered afterwards, I spoke to somebody who's one of the people who's very active in the Friends of the Northampton Trail. Friends.
Who was that? Remember?
I don't remember the name, or I prefer not to say it because I'm about to diss him. Because his response, when I talked about that same problem, he said, "Oh yeah, that's a problem. We put up signs." And to me, that sounded just like Chuck Schumer saying, "Oh, I sent a stern letter to Trump." It's weak sauce. And it seemed, wasn't really caring about it. And I was not very impressed. So to see the fact that one trail can have these signs, metal signs, they're not ones you can pull out of the ground. There are signs from the Friends saying e-bike should 15 or under. A, they have no idea what speed they're going. B, even if they do, might be ignored. It's a safety issue and a comfort issue that is not being addressed.
I think you're not alone in that. I think a lot of people are waking up to the idea that these are not what they're cracked up to be. And we live 8 feet from the trail here, so we see it all times of the day, and not just when we're out there, but it goes right by our house. And we see the class 3 bikes, which are the e-bikes that don't need to be pedal assisted.
Throttle.
Yeah, they're just like poor man's motorcycles, so to speak. And what we see are people on those class bikes are, generally speaking, people with their baseball caps on backwards, no helmets, and smoking a cigarette. And it seems that they were bagged for DWI or operating under influence, and they lost their driver's license. And the plan B then is to have an e-bike, and the more robust, with the really big, robust tires too. And you're right, they're not in tune with what really should happen here. I agree with you.
Right. And the fact that at least one person representing the Friends of the Northampton Trail seems, if not blasé, seem dismissive about the concern. When I mentioned the Ashtawiltacook Trail and how they have metal permanent signs there, he said, we're putting chalk on the trail.
This is the difference between the two projects. I was at the ribbon cutting of the Ashtawiltacook Trail in 2001, spring of 2001. That is owned and maintained by Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation, the State Parks Agency. The trail here in Northampton, on the west side of the active rail line, all the way through Florence and even into downtown on the west side of the active railroad, that is owned and operated and maintained and governed by the city of Northampton, which is different than a state parks agency. Once you go under the tunnel, that section of the corridor is owned by DCR and goes all the way to the west side of Belchertown. And they maintain it a little different, and there's a little bit different ownership operations here. I think over time, the e-bike presence as it currently exists is going to be annoying enough that there will be tighter regs for that. And if nothing stays the same, Massachusetts is a first in a lot of ways. Transportation delivery, they're not. This corridor, we're sitting right now is like ground zero for the densest network of dead steam railroad corridor is within 150 miles of where we're sitting right now. And we're 45 or 50 years, depending upon how you look at it, 2 generations in,
Right.
On reassembling what should have been a no-brainer for the state government to reassemble this corridor. And they haven't, and they're getting ready to, but it's a journey.
Right.
Nothing moves fast in this realm in Massachusetts.
Makes sense. And it makes sense too when you tell me that the Berkshire Trail, one of the Berkshires, is run by DCR, that we were impressed that they had these little carts with blowers on them to clean the trail, of leaves.
Or
It
goose
was-
droppings.
Or leaves. It was just like, it was very impressive. It made me jealous. What can I say?
I would say that maybe you should become on the board of the Friends of Northampton Trails and take it up a notch there.
That's a
They are
possibility
welcome.
on my busy plate, but that's a
Yes.
possibility.
Let's talk about eminent domain and revitalizing Northampton. I'm not sure what you mean by that. And
Culture has been a big part of what Northampton is in the arts and other things. And here we have the Calvin Theater, the biggest theater, still unoccupied, and blocking on his name, Eric
Sure.
yes, owns it, but he's doing nothing with it. Could that be something that the city would use eminent domain because of the importance of having a venue? I was thinking of that venue in particular because it was one that attracted musicians. They had a Boston gig, a New York City gig. Oh, in between, let's go to Northampton. And that used to be very common here. And so I would wonder what the possibilities of using eminent domain is to reclaim it from somebody who's just damaging.
I think there's something in between doing nothing and then doing the nuclear weapons incentive of eminent domain. Something in between. This is not a newfangled thing. A lot of post-COVID, a lot of in village centers or downtowns, there's been places that haven't come back to life as early as everybody else has expected. And in the case of the Calvin Theater, for example, that's the prime thing that Eric has in Northampton. That was under contract to be sold to a prim and proper experienced operator of such a venue. They were based in, I think it was Burlington, Vermont. But somehow the deal never came to be and the deal fell apart. And then so they're searching for an alternative now. And what you're talking about is having the municipality have an incentive to not have your venue vacant. Because the municipality and all the other ancillary businesses really count on having that mecca of something where people want to come and see a live performance. That's an important factor. And people go to town and they have dinner and then they go to the event.
It helps a lot of business.
There is, in some places, not in Northampton yet, but there's been some places where they've implemented an incentive of sorts to disincentivize having your critical infrastructure for the community vacant. Can't count on you to find the next chapter for that place. If it's not up to you, if your chapters are running out, let's say, there's a tax program that penalizes you.
That sounds like a step two. Maybe this is just from articles I read in the Daily Hampshire Gazette, but that when the deal fell through on the Calvin, that sewer was still being intransigent about communicating and even making a new deal. That pressure is needed, and if the extra tax was high enough, that could be a better step to push, I would think.
What I'll do is do a little search on this tax incentive programs in other communities. I'll get back to you on that. That may be what's needed here. With the coming election too, I know there's going to be new blood coming onto the city council or maybe even the mayor, but I'm sure that this will be talked about. So I have a lecture coming up on October 7th. I don't know when this is going to be broadcast, but I'll be speaking before Strong Towns Northampton. It's talking about the history of building out this 100-mile rail trail and the tie-in to the Picture Main Street project to remake downtown Northampton be more bike and ped friendly. And there's a lot of pushback with some of the business owners there. But underway right now is I brought forward a consultant who raised the money to do the project. to figure out the longest interstate trail in the Northeast United States goes from New Haven, Connecticut to Northampton, Massachusetts,
Right.
at Union
I've
Station.
been on part of it.
That's right. Locally, it's known as the Manhattan Rail Trail. We used to have 16 different names. How can you market for something for economic
And it was
impact?
on the section that they were calling Columbia Greenway,
Yeah,
which is, I think, the overall name they're looking for.
in Westfield, the real overall name, there was a woman who was involved in the rail trail project in Southwick. There's 6 communities in this project in Massachusetts. Most of the corridor is in Connecticut. I think it's 84 miles altogether. I'll say 60 miles is in Connecticut, the small fraction of Massachusetts. There used to be 16 different names. This woman, Christy Banish, who will be one of my guests on the podcast in the future, she's the head of the Friends of the Southwick Rail Trail. And she came up through a series of meetings with everybody along the corridor to make an umbrella name for the entire thing.
What's being thought of is
New Haven and Northampton Canal Greenway. New
too
Haven and-
long,
I
too
don't
long.
know, but it's only an umbrella name. Everybody will get to keep their original names. But you can't market something that has 16
I
different names.
understand. That's what I did as
That's right.
marketing. I think, yeah, it'll be good. It'll be good to help it.
So you remember this, NHNCG, New Haven and Northampton Canal Greenway, nhnCG.org. That is the website.
Yeah. It's cumbersome.
I know, but it originally was the New Haven and Northampton Canal. And it didn't work as a canal, so then they made it into a railroad.
The canal rail trail,
There are canal rail trails, but we have to have one
right?
that's local to here, to Western New England.
Yeah,
And so that's what's been created. And there's
That'd be
still
good.
one community in Connecticut holding out, refusing to go to that. I told them, we don't care. All the people on that committee won't be there 5 or 7 years, and then they'll come along. You just gotta be patient.
that'll be good.
But the premise is that downtown Northampton's about to change. The east-west trail from Boston to Northampton, we did a report a couple of years ago showing that's going to be very impactful. It's going to be 4 to 5 million users a year, 4 to 500,000 overnight visitors, people coming from Boston all the way out to here. This trail in Connecticut is going to be easy connections from New York City located people or
Yeah.
suburb.
You take Metro North and
Right there, and go for a nice
however,
multi-day journey on your
Yeah.
bike. The people will be all of it. I think combining the two, and we're gonna find out in a few more weeks here, what that north-south trail connecting into downtown Northampton, what is that gonna be worth? Tying together with the east-west trail, we think that the picture Main Street conversation, whatever gets built or doesn't get built, gets drawn down, let's say. Whatever gets built will be insufficient. They're not talking about reality. Reality is there will be over 1 million people a year coming into downtown Northampton without cars. They will be by bike or walking, more so than the current experience is. Hands down, that's the big change coming.
going back to picture Main Street and my maybe, as you put it, nuclear option of eminent domain, but having some kind of pressure in order to reclaim the Calvin could also be looked at for those businesses that understandably are somewhat concerned about how the whole project of redoing Main Street might hurt them, be a counter incentive to show, look, we're doing this to get more business, to get more people coming into the center of town. So I think it even ties in whether not the nuclear option, but the tax option could be an important
future.
counter in the near future.
That's good. We got to do a little research on that, David, so we can bring
Okay.
it to our
Okay.
city councilors that would be effective. Now, you've had other things here to explore. What do you want to focus on yourself here?
The digital technology part. I don't know if there's anything any locality can do, but I'm someone who's been involved in the digital realm. I was a computer magazine editor starting in 1985. As I like to say to people our age, boomers, what were you doing with computers back then? I'm far from a Luddite when it comes to computers. At the same time, face to face, like we're doing today in other realms as well, is really important to create community, and finding ways to get people together away from screens is important for the growth of a small city like Northampton. And I don't know exactly how that might be implemented, but I think that also needs to be a focus, whether it's more events, more occasions to people to meet up. That's something that both government and other community groups can focus on, because I know that away from screens, people are more likely to really connect.
What about this? It's been my experience when you go into a coffee shop or something like that. There's always some people there that are fixated on their screen, or, yeah. How about, I know on trains, they sometimes have areas that are screen-free or conversation-free.
Quiet cars, yes.
Quiet cars. What? Quiet cars are for the people on their screens.
Exactly.
But what about restaurants or cafes if they had a section away from?
Or rather than a section, I was reading, and I don't know where this is, a cafe where they just don't have Wi-Fi. You come, and
Oh, yes,
then you
block it.
If not block it, certainly don't incentivize it by giving people an easy way to get online. They can still do it with their cell connection, of course, but ways to create environments that just incentivize screen free. Hey, put your phone here, get a 5% discount. I don't know. There could be, and I think when places are open to the people, I see more gathering. It's not pure, but for example, when I go to the neighboring Chestnut Cafe, some people are on their screens all the time, but a lot aren't. And not that they particularly should make it so that people can't get online, but a place like that where people do gather to begin with, some kind of way that helps people, whether the people they're with or others, to connect, just makes for a warmer, safer, more welcoming place to live.
That's probably got merit. Are you a cat person?
Dog person, but
dog person.
More so people who think that it's okay to have animals in their home versus not. I think it's really more that.
Well, I was introduced to the idea of cat cafes by one of my real estate clients who was toying with the idea of starting such a thing. And there isn't one now, just recently opened in Greenfield, a cat cafe. And the cat cafe might be the proper venue to have no screen time, because you want to have people patronizing the cat cafe interact with the cats rather than interact with the screen stuff.
So that's a great idea. And of course, it could be done dogs, it could be done different ways. I love it. I love it. Just, that's also the point. There's no single solution. It's just finding non-screen ways that people are attracted to and might incentivize to do something away from the screen.
Then they have the hybrid screen at Miss Florence Diner, the screen showing jukebox at each diner booth. So you have to read the jukebox.
I don't think of those as screens. They're too old.
What else we want to talk about here?
I don't know. I have no solution to it. I mentioned in my initial notes.
You want to look at them?
I'm looking at them.
Oh, you have them
I'm looking
there.
at my phone right now. And
Visions for Northampton. Do you think we covered that section?
Well, do you have anything that when you hear that phrase, beside trails, beside, when I was talking about different events, I was glad to see that this coming weekend, not only the Jazz Festival, but there's a Forbes Library lawn party they're having.
Oh,
And
at their new venue, their new
Right.
outdoor. Yeah.
And there's no reason that it's great to have both, that to have more events, it takes energy, it takes time, sometimes it takes some money involved, but to have different events on a regular basis is again a way for people to connect. This past Saturday, Northampton Neighbors has the Doozy Doo Parade, but it's actually led by a lot of other groups, companies that aren't even directly a part of Northampton Neighbors. And then afterwards, people in Pulaski Park dancing, listening to music. The more events that can occur is just another way, especially a community of this size, not too big, not too small. And it can gather people from around the area as well.
Yeah, that's a friend of mine, Jonathan Dowd, runs that, organizes that Doozy Doo Parade. And Jonathan is well loved. It's like a crazy parade for just no real reason, no holiday. It's just a parade.
It's a parade, exactly. I went to it for various reasons. It hadn't worked. Remember, I only lived in Massachusetts 2 years now.
2 years.
Only 2 years. I went to it for the first time this past Saturday. And actually, I just brought my camera and went around, but within the parade rather than the sides, being part of it, being part of the bicycle group, which was next to the gardening group. And it was fun because you're right, the energy isn't necessarily for any reason other than let's have fun. Even the name is, it may be sillier than my normal taste is, but I should get into it because it breaks rules of sternness.
Just for Northampton, I see something else here that, I look like high altitude of things. And most good ideas in the United States started in Massachusetts. But then, if you really do a deep dive on it, you'll see a lot of those good ideas started in Western Massachusetts. And looking at things from day-to-day life here in Northampton, there's a few things that are happening that are newfangled ideas that should be spread to other places. And
what are you thinking?
Oh, like the trash hauling company, your neighbors on around the corner on High Street, pedal people.
Been going on for over 20 years.
I sold them their house there. They bought in a seller's market, and that way back then in 2005, the house came on the market. The house they wanted to buy, a 2-family house, was on the market at 330, and they couldn't afford that. They could only afford 300. And it was fresh to the market. It wasn't run down or lagging on the market for months. No, it just came on the market at 330, and they liked it. And they didn't want to put in an offer thinking that it was going to sell at 330. And I said, no, let's write a nice little letter talking about why you like the house so much. And today, those are frowned on. Letters to sellers are frowned on.
I've heard.
Yes. But back then, and it was all about proximity to the rail trail. The pedal people, principal organizers, wanted to buy that house because it was right next to the spine route of their highway to be able to market for people where the pedal people would come and take your trash and your recyclables by way of a bicycle pulling a 300-pound capacity trailer. And that idea actually prevailed. Their letter prevailed. They purchased the house for 300. But that idea, with all these rail trails in this network that's being developed here, it's about half built out now. But this idea of having a sustainable way to take care of your trash and recyclables, where you don't have to do it, but you don't have to contract with a trucking company. In my past life, I used to take thousands and thousands of trucks off the roads coming into New England. I used to market rail freight. And so today, in a minuscule sort of silly way, whenever I sell a house in the service territory of the pedal people, I gift my buyers a subscription to them. So I still take trucks off the road. They should have a way to sell that idea across the spectrum throughout southern New England, where there are rail trails being built. That's one thing I can see here, a vision for Northampton to spread good ideas in other places. Another thing is big houses, that people are living in big houses down near Smith College, 3,000, 4,000 foot houses that they don't comfortably like climbing stairs anymore. They need to be on one level living. Those houses are going to be hard to sell to a conventional buyer who's not going to have a lot of children. Should we make them into condominiums, different levels of condominiums, or should we make them into group homes where the owner occupied, but it would be like some of those houses have 6, 7, 8 bedrooms. And so to make them living space for people to be
that would be good. Now, part of group occupied that I've been hearing about more are for older people, except those same stairs that are difficult wouldn't work, but it could work for different ages, and I think there would be an attraction. Also, going back to the trails and their central place for pedal people, I'm wondering about the trails as a central place for food delivery.
Oh, yeah.
Rather than some DoorDash car coming up to you, that to be known, food delivery by bike using the trails, and various restaurants and other small groceries, Cooper's Corner, could contract with them, making that an incentive, and that way also, and just the pedal people keep going even in the colder winter. So could the food delivery when people might want food delivery more in the cold of winter. So expanding the use of trails for bikes to do something can also maybe be part of it.
Before we get to that destination, we're going to have reined in e-bikes, including business e-bikes on the trail, and their speed limit and their courtesy. And so there's going to have to be an awakening on that.
And maybe the only way they deliver is at the most a level 1 bike to know that's part of it. One of the other things I had in my notes, and I'm going to actually begin with a question for you. How often do you use AI?
I try not to use it ever. You saw me, I have to shut off my phone now by AI. I can't just turn off my phone. I have to go to AI and turn off my phone.
Interesting.
I don't like AI, although I'll use it to edit things I write because it's easier, and it teaches me mistakes that I can overcome. I like that, but I don't use it to write the text on my real estate listings. I don't use it in other ways. I can't imagine trying to be a student in today's age.
And yet it's used more, and we're reading about how professors are trying, whether it's in class only tests or other ways to have the students work on their own. One of the reasons I ask is, on my notes initially, I mentioned how AI and crypto, what they really are though, and it's one reason why I avoid AI, is they are energy vampires. The amount of energy needed to run both those things, I think of them as twin. They're sucking, that's why I use the term vampire. They're sucking energy force like blood from, it's one reason electrical costs have gone up.
And it's one of the reasons why it's going to be harder to shut down coal. We don't have any coal left in New England now. But in other parts of the country, it's still existing, and that it's harder for the utilities to disengage from coal by the need for this AI-driven immense power.
And crypto, both too. We don't have a solution here. I'm bringing up a problem with no solution. You mentioned coal. The painted man in the White House he was talking even at the UN about how wonderful coal is and how horrible renewables are, which it's embarrassing to have somebody.
I know, but it's every 80 years. 1785 was the first populist uprising in the United States. Here in Western Mass, Daniel Shay's rebellion.
Right.
And then 1865, 80 years later, putting down the Confederacy. Another 80 years, putting down the Nazis, 1945. And now it's what a coincidence, 2025, and see another populist uprising.
It's interesting you bring that up because that ties in. I've mentioned, and you mentioned in the intro, I have been an astrologer for years. When I say astrologer, full astrology is more than, hey, what's your sign? It's really complex. It looks at all the planets. It's a symbolic system, though. Real astrology is like a map. You look at a detailed map, and if you're a good map reader, you can tell a lot about the land underneath it, but it does not create the land. It is a symbolic form representing it. Astrology, full astrology, is a symbolic form representing cycles, which you were just talking about. This particular cycle you're talking about has to do a lot with the transit of Uranus. Uranus is a planet of, among other things, symbolically, of change, of rebellion, of electricity itself, whether literal or figurative. And so that cycle is definitely shown in symbolic ways as well as historic ways. They tie in together.
That's interesting.
So
the astrology used to be more popular in the later years of the 20th century. It seems like you don't hear much about astrology anymore.
no,
Why is that?
I'm not certain. I actually expected when I moved here with all the other more eccentric interests there are, and it still is an eccentric interest relative to the common thread, that there'd be more people in this area interested. I'm really not certain why. That's my approach is logical and not new age. In fact, the term new age makes me twitch. But at the same time, I've seen how cycles, whether in my own life, in the life of people I know, or in a global sense in the world, do repeat. In fact, maybe I don't know how much more time we have, but I had a question based upon reading a book about time by an Italian physicist. And let me ask you a question. Think of it as a multiple choice question. What is time to you? Is time linear? Things just progress forward and forward. Is time circular and things just repeat? Is time more of a spiral, which kind of combines the two? Yeah, things repeat, but at a different level when they repeat. Or is time something, time is just the present? That's choice number 4. Or number 5, is time something else? When you think of what time is, I know I just threw this at you all of a sudden. What is time? What do you feel time is?
I feel time is that, I'm not sure if I'm in a rut, but each benchmark of time during the day, I know where I'm going to be, what I'm going to be doing. It's not as if I'm sitting in a 9-to-5 cubicle someplace, but I have benchmarks during the day that I have certain things to do, that it's like taking your dog out for a walk at a certain time. But it just seems to me that my reference point of time is
circular, things repeat.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a single answer there, and that's why I think it's a fascinating question. There's nothing more essential than what is time, they say.
Yeah, you can extrapolate that out to be in the months. I could have never imagined in a million years for me wanting to move into a sunshine state. Right? I used to make snow. And I became immune to the cold for many years. Now that I'm older, I'm less immune to the cold as I used to be. But we used to, it was 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. It was 20 to 40 below zero chill factors, making snow at a ski resort. But it was only 12 weeks. December 1st to March 1st. Couldn't make snow after, couldn't make snow before, and then the rest of the year was normal. I lived beachfront property on Cape Cod for Martha's Vineyard for several months of the year.
This is a younger Craig.
That's right. Then I had to get a real job, couldn't just save up money and collect unemployment and 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. You couldn't spend your money. You were just going home, have dinner and go back to bed. And so it was a very unusual life, but I couldn't imagine not living in a place that didn't have four seasons.
Yeah.
So
That
that's the-
ties us, that is another way that ties us to time, that kind of cycle, but also different. For example, as I said, we've been living where we live, the house you helped us buy 2 years, and we have a bunch of crabapple trees up front. And last year, very little fruit. This year, all over.
Is it because it loves the people hosting the property?
As I said, I'm not new age, so I don't have a good answer to that.
Are you feeding them and watering the trees?
No, and we need water. I'm glad it's raining today.
So why are they producing a harvest?
Let me use a little French on you. Je ne sais quoi. I do not know.
I do not know. I probably used to know that phrase because my grandfather was French Canadian and he lived with us in the summer months. He was a winter guy in Florida, but in the summer he lived with us. And he always spoke French to me when I was like 0 to like maybe 3 years old. And my mother said to him, because I started speaking French, not English, she said, "You stop talking French to him. I don't want him speaking French." And so it's all gone to me. I think that's the end of our show here.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Craig.
Yes. Thanks for tuning in to Roads Less Traveled with Craig Della Penna. I hope today's episode gave you fresh ideas and inspiration for exploring the unique world of real estate, rail trails, and bike tourism. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share the show so we can reach more trail lovers and real estate enthusiasts like you. Stay connected, stay curious, and I'll see you in 2 weeks with more expert insights and stories from the roads less traveled. Until then, keep exploring those hidden paths and uncovering new opportunities. Thanks.